I need to share this story because it feels too weird to be true. I still can't believe it happened. I'm not sure if this is the best place to post this, but I hope it fits here. Sorry in advance, this might be a long post. Last autumn, I decided to seriously try dating apps. I wanted to meet new people. After graduating from college in May, I moved back home. It was still early in the COVID pandemic and I felt pretty lonely. I'd always used Tinder, but a friend suggested I try Bumble. At first, I enjoyed it. I matched with several guys. They were okay, but our chats didn't lead anywhere. I didn't really connect with anyone. One guy I matched with asked for my Snapchat, which I gave him, and we followed each other on Instagram too. I thought sharing my social media was harmless. Our conversations were short, and we stopped talking after a few days. He was a bit odd, and I wasn't interested. Months later, he messaged me on Instagram. He said he unfollowed me because I supported Joe Biden, and then he sent me over 40 messages trying to change my mind to support Trump. I'm quite liberal, and if I had known his views earlier, I wouldn't have talked to him at all. He tried to explain his point of view, saying others had blocked him for the same reason, and he just wanted me to understand him. He ended his barrage of messages with memes, trying to lighten the mood of our one-sided conversation. We hadn't talked enough for him to be so forward with me. I didn't reply to him. I didn't even block him. I just let him see that I had read his messages, and then I unfollowed him. The next morning, all his messages were gone, erased by him. It scared me so much that I recorded it and showed it to my friend because it felt really creepy and strange. After that, I didn't think about him anymore and moved on with my life. A few weeks back, I was on Facebook and saw a news report from a town about an hour away from me. It was the town where this guy lived. The news was horrifying. A man had shot and killed an elderly woman in his building with a rifle. He was trying to force other people out of their homes when another neighbor shot him to stop the attack. As I read the report, the man's name and face looked familiar. Then it hit me. It was the same guy. I checked the screen recording of our old messages to make sure, and it was indeed him. My heart pounded, and I felt sick realizing I had actually talked to him, that weird guy from the dating app. It's deeply unsettling to think I had any interaction with him at all. It's been weeks since I learned about this and it still haunts me. Just today, I read more details about the incident. Sometimes I can't help but think about the what-ifs. What if I had answered his messages and called him out for being creepy? What if that had angered him enough to come after me? It's terrifying to consider. I sincerely hope the woman he killed is at peace now. Thank you for listening to my story, and please, be careful with people you meet online. You never really know who they are or what they might do. Looking back now, it all happened so fast it's hard to know where to start. Maybe a good starting point is when I first met my brother's girlfriend, who I'll call Ava. It was early May 2021, and although my brother, who I'll call Leo, had been seeing her for a few weeks, I had only glimpsed her when she came over. She and Leo would head straight to his room, so I never really talked to her until that time. Leo mentioned she was quite shy and worried we might not like her, which I could understand. But I was also curious to meet the girl who had captivated so much of Leo's time. Honestly, he was always on his phone texting her. Leo told me we were finally going to meet Ava one weekend. She lived about half an hour away, and usually took a cab to where my brother and our cousins lived. But that day, she said she didn't have enough money for a cab and would walk instead, which could take a few hours. Leo couldn't drive. He hadn't wanted to since a car accident a few years back, so he tried to arrange another ride for her, but she declined. She wanted to impress me and our mom by not seeming too needy before we even met. So Leo and I waited for her that afternoon, Leo texting her constantly, checking how she was and how close she was, until she finally arrived. I think it's important to mention that Leo had shared a bit about her, like her extremely strict dad, who would be furious if he knew she had a boyfriend. He had even threatened to harm any boy she dated. After hearing this, Mom wasn't too keen on her. It was clear Ava really wanted to make a good impression. The afternoon went smoothly. Ava was wonderful, and I could see why Leo was so taken with her. They were so alike, even sharing a love for quirky hats. That day, Ava met me, a few of our friends, my dad, my other brother, and his family. Everyone seemed to adore her. She had a way of charming everyone she met. However, something odd happened when we were hanging out with our friends, Max and Sam. After we introduced her, Max looked at Ava strangely and seemed confused. Leo and I noticed and looked at him puzzled. Then Max asked Ava, "Hey, do I know you? You're Maggie, right?" He suggested that they might have dated or something in the past. This confused us even more because Leo had just introduced her as his girlfriend, Ava, not Maggie. Ava quickly denied it, saying she had a cousin named Maggie, who had unfortunately passed away recently. Max wasn't convinced though, still sure Ava was the girl he remembered. We brushed it off as Max often mixed up details, and attributed it to that, and the coincidence of her having a cousin named Maggie. Despite the confusion, we stayed a bit longer, chatting about things on Sam's driveway that I can't quite recall now. Ava had met everyone that night, but there wasn't much else worth noting. As weeks passed, it was now the end of May or early June, and Ava and I had grown quite close. She finally met my mom, who instantly adored her just as my dad had. Although Leo was 2 years older than I, we shared the same circle of friends, although everyone was starting to go their separate ways, except for Max, Sam, and our other friends. Will, his girlfriend Lucy, and our friend Jack, who was about to move away. We all hung out quite a bit, and aside from another minor clash between Max and Ava, things were smoothing out. We learned more about Ava, like she had a big family with an older brother and sister, a younger brother, and 3 younger sisters, one of whom needed special care. She also shared that she and her mom had serious conflicts, so much so that her mom had given her an ultimatum: find a job or leave the house right after her upcoming high school graduation. Upon hearing this, Leo did everything he could to help her. He even persuaded my parents and our grandmother, who owned our house, to let Ava move in with us. For some context, my grandparents were former real estate agents and owned several houses, some of which they rented out or let family live in. At that time, Leo was living with some of our cousins, while I was still at home with our parents. Technically, Ava wouldn't be living with Leo, but with me and my parents. When asked if I was okay with Ava moving in, since we'd be sharing a room, I said yes, albeit hesitantly. I genuinely liked Ava. She was kind and made Leo very happy. But we had only known her a few months, and I was worried about potential problems from such a quick, big change. Nonetheless, Ava's only other option was to move far away with relatives she barely knew, so I agreed to the arrangement. By late June, when Leo and I went to pick up Ava and her belongings, she warned us that her parents might be arguing loudly when we arrived. Her dad disagreed with her mom about kicking her out, and their disagreements had reportedly escalated over the past weeks since Ava announced her move. Ava had also told her parents about her relationship with Leo, but he had yet to meet them because her dad was strongly opposed, and she feared he might harm Leo if they met. Given all this tension and Ava's strained relationship with her mom, she preferred to keep her personal life as private as possible. So when my siblings and I arrived at Ava's house, we expected the worst. Instead, we found Ava calmly sitting outside with her bags packed, ready to leave. There was no sign of her parents or the loud arguments she had described. It was eerily quiet, almost too quiet, which felt strange because we had braced ourselves for chaos and a potentially angry confrontation with her dad, Saul. But there was just Ava waiting by herself, seemingly unaffected by any turmoil inside her home. We picked her up without any issues and drove her back to our place, where we helped her move in. Over the next few months, everything seemed normal until one night in early November. Ava and I were up late watching videos on YouTube. I noticed she was deeply engrossed in texting someone. Assuming she was messaging Leo, I didn't think much of it. We were sharing my mom's laptop, sitting close together, which made it easy to accidentally glance at her phone. What I saw surprised me. She wasn't texting Leo, but someone on Snapchat, and she called this person baby. I found it odd, but I kept quiet about it, not wanting to jump to conclusions over a snippet of their conversation. A few days later, curiosity got the better of me. Ava and Leo were in the living room, and she had left her phone in my room. Knowing she didn't use a password, I looked through her phone, a decision I immediately regretted. I discovered explicit messages to the same person I had seen her texting the other night. I was shocked. This was not the Ava I thought I knew. Feeling a responsibility to inform Leo, I told him what I had found. He confronted Ava right away, and they broke up on the spot. Distraught, Ava left the house and sat on the sidewalk, despite it being past midnight. Leo and I joined her outside, sitting in silence for a long time. Eventually, she stood up, walked back inside, and went straight to our room. She pulled out a small container from one of her boxes, a box she hadn't unpacked even after living with us for nearly 5 months. She then walked back outside, Leo and I trailing behind her. We asked her repeatedly what she was doing as she pulled out a bag full of various pills, a lighter, and some cigarettes. Dangerous for her, especially since she had chronic asthma. Ava then told us she was planning to end her life. The gravity of the situation hit us hard as we stood there, trying to process her words and the contents of the container. The night air felt heavier as we realized the depth of her despair, overshadowed by the secret she had kept hidden behind her calm exterior. Completely shaken, Leo and I followed Ava as she walked away, desperately pleading with her to come back to the house to talk things through. As I focused on calming Ava, I didn't notice Leo had stopped following. He had gone back to tell our parents what was happening and to call for emergency help. While walking, I tried to talk to Ava, telling her she could be angry, yell at me, or do anything she needed, just not to hurt herself. She questioned why I had looked through her phone, and honestly, I didn't have a clear answer. I just wanted her to be safe. Fortunately, the police and my mom reached us at a park not far from our house, and after some talking, Ava agreed to come back with us. A few days later, Leo and Ava had a long talk. Ava explained that the suspicious texts were from November 2018, before they met. Ava and I eventually resolved our issues too, and it seemed like everything was settling down, although I remained slightly uneasy about the whole situation. Ava suffered from bipolar depression, which could lead to intense emotional reactions, but the extremity of that night was something I never expected. Despite convincing everyone about the dates of the texts, I was almost certain they were recent. Yet if Leo was willing to forgive her and give her another chance, I thought I should too. After all, she was still his girlfriend and my roommate. By late January, Ava had been traveling between our house and her parents' house about once a month for orthodontist appointments since she and her younger brother had gotten braces recently. Her mom would take them to these appointments, which seemed odd considering Ava had told us she was kicked out. Ava explained that her mom used these visits as a chance for Ava to babysit her younger siblings. It was a strange arrangement, but it seemed to work for them. Ava also frequently visited her parents because her special needs sister was said to be epileptic and often needed hospital care. We never actually met her mom. Ava would always meet her at the car. One day while Ava was being picked up, my dad happened to be watering the lawn and went over to say hello to her mom. When he brought up Ava, her mom looked confused. Sarah, my dad said, you know, your daughter? My daughter's name is Maggie, she replied, stunning my dad. It turned out Ava, or rather Maggie, had been lying about everything. She didn't have 6 siblings as claimed, just 2. A brother with braces and a sister who wasn't actually epileptic. All those hospital visits, they never happened. And she hadn't been kicked out. She moved out voluntarily after we agreed she could stay with us. Even the story about her dad opposing her having a boyfriend was fabricated. Her parents didn't even know she was dating. She had told them she was living with a friend and her grandma. After uncovering all this and sharing it, I thought back to the first day we met her. When Max recognized her as Maggie, he was right, but we all doubted him. Maggie was so convincing, even making Max question his own memory. Every story she shared with us turned out to be part of a complex web of lies that I'm still trying to fully comprehend. This whole experience has taught me a harsh lesson about being cautious with people you meet online. Leo met Maggie on a dating app, and looking back, I'm sure he regrets ever swiping right on her profile. And honestly, so do I. So, this strange thing happened when I was about 22 years old. I was using an online dating app called Plenty of Fish, trying to find a nice guy to date. I started chatting with a few men, but those conversations quickly turned inappropriate and even aggressive when I made it clear I wasn't interested in just hooking up. There was one man, probably 5 years older than me, who messaged me and behaved differently from the rest. Our chats were quite normal, and I decided to meet him in person when he suggested it. At that time, I was serving in the Navy, and it turned out he was too. We were actually stationed on the same base, though I lived off base. He told me he was a martial arts instructor and taught classes at the gym near the barracks. He seemed genuinely nice, so we arranged to go out, but there was something about him that made me uneasy. Usually I'm the funny one in the group, always cracking jokes and making people laugh. But this guy, he never reacted to any of my jokes. He just ignored them and continued the conversation as if I hadn't said anything funny at all. He felt almost too serious. I decided to just ignore it. The night before we were supposed to meet, I received a really weird phone call from a number that showed up as unknown. You know, those numbers you can't call back. I usually wouldn't have answered, but for some reason, I did that night. The voice on the other end was a woman's, and she sounded really upset. She started with, "Hello, is this?" And then she said my name. I hesitated. Who is this?" I asked. She quickly replied, "I know you have a date tomorrow with a guy from Plenty of Fish. Don't go, he's dangerous." I was shocked. She knew both my name and his, and I blurted out, "What? Who are you?" She begged me to listen. She explained she worked in IT for the Navy, which is how she managed to get into his account and see our messages, including my phone number. She used my number to find me in the base directory, and that's how she got my name and address, or so she claimed. This really scared me. She continued, saying that after she met him through Plenty of Fish, he took her to a secluded place and attacked her. I asked if she had reported it, but she said no because she was of a lower rank and feared no one would believe her. At this point, I didn't know if she was an angry ex-girlfriend or if what she was saying was true, but I wanted nothing to do with it either way. I thanked her for the warning and immediately called off the date. I didn't want any part of whatever this was, be it lies or truth, especially since she had gone through the trouble of tracking both him and me. Something about that whole thing felt very wrong. The next day, he called to ask why I had canceled. I made up an excuse, and then he said, "She contacted you, didn't she?" I was stunned into silence. Before I could respond, he just added, "I thought so," and ended the call. I blocked his number right after. After I finished college, I moved into a small townhouse. It had just one bedroom and was kind of split in the middle. I met a man named Tom on Plenty of Fish. Back then, I wasn't very careful about my online privacy. I've improved a bit since, but I used to be quite careless. Tom seemed nice, he was handsome, claimed he had a steady job, nice teeth, and looked like he took good care of himself. He ticked all the boxes for what I looked for in a partner. I care about looking good, and think it's important for my partner to do the same, especially in a professional setting. After chatting online for a week, we decided to meet. We chose a restaurant in the downtown area, which was quite far from where I lived. When I arrived, I saw him waiting at the entrance. We had dinner and the night went really well. At the end of the evening, I got into my car to head home. That's when I noticed Tom was following me. Since my house was far and the city was big, I wasn't worried at first. I thought he might exit the freeway soon, but he didn't. When my exit came up, I didn't take it. I just kept driving around the city, but he stayed right behind me. I started to get really nervous, so I decided to go to my friend Jane's place instead of heading home. When I finally took an exit, he kept going straight, which gave me a moment to breathe. Thinking it was safe, I changed my mind and headed home. After a shower as I was preparing for bed, I started to feel silly. Questions like, was it really him following me? And am I being paranoid? Ran through my mind. I decided to text him a simple message. "Hey, I had a good time tonight. Good night." But just as I started typing, I received a message from him. A photo of my car parked outside my house. My heart stopped. I was shaking and speechless. Then he texted again saying, "I didn't know you lived across the street from me." I knew all my neighbors, and I had never seen him before. There was a large apartment complex near my townhouse. Maybe he lived there? Unsure, I peeked outside and there he was, standing there as if waiting for me. I opened the door slightly, and he asked if he could come in to hang out. Exhausted and overwhelmed, I declined, saying I was too tired after such a long day. The next morning, I discovered my car was vandalized. Windshield smashed, body keyed, and 2 tires slashed. As I looked at the damage done to my car, Tom approached with 2 coffees, saying he wanted to surprise me with a morning treat. I was completely scared. I immediately called the police and reported the damage. Tom offered to drive me somewhere, but my instincts told me not to go with him. Instead, I phoned my boss to explain the situation and told him I couldn't come to work until the police arrived. Tom stayed around the whole time. When the police finally arrived, Tom began to act very strange. He walked away and hid behind his car. I gave all the details to the officers and filed a report. The officers mentioned hoping I had insurance as they prepared to leave. As they drove away, I suddenly heard sirens, then saw the police car's lights flash. An officer shouted, "Freeze! Put your hands in the air and get down on your knees." I looked over, and the officer had his gun pointed while Tom was being arrested on the ground. Afterwards, one officer stayed behind to explain to me that Tom was wanted for multiple charges, including stalking, violating probation, assault with a deadly weapon, fraud, and aggravated assault. I was completely shaken by this revelation. It took several days to process what could have potentially happened to me. About a week later, as I was leaving for work, I saw Tom sitting in my driveway. Despite the charges, in Canada, you're often free until your trial. I told him I was late for work but would call him later. I never went to work that day. Instead, I looked for a new apartment in a different part of the city. I changed my phone number and arranged for my friend's husband and his buddies to pack up my apartment. They stored my things at their place for a month before moving them to my new apartment. I was terrified that Tom might follow them during the move. So that's my frightening experience with meeting someone from Plenty of Fish, and I've decided never to use it again. So, I'm 23 and living in Oregon. Last winter, I decided to try out Tinder for the first time. Before this, I had used Hot or Not and Plenty of Fish, but mostly ended up interacting with fake profiles and scammers, which made me somewhat skeptical about online dating. One particularly dull Friday evening, I felt adventurous enough to download Tinder and see where it could lead. After setting up my profile, I started swiping, and surprisingly, it took less than an hour after I logged off to get a match. To give you a bit of background, I describe myself as bisexual, though I'm not fond of putting labels on it. I matched with a 25-year-old guy named Ethan. Ethan was quite good-looking and shared my interests in gaming and programming. I decided to message him, but before I could type anything, he messaged me first. His message was, "Hey, noticed you're new to Tinder. Just wanted to say hi." I replied, and we started chatting about our shared passions for video games, movies, and coding. He mentioned he was a full-time programmer, working just 4 hours a day, which sounded ideal. He suggested hanging out, and I invited him over since I was alone at home, and he still lived with his parents. Ethan seemed really excited about the invite, and quickly agreed. We planned for him to come over in an hour, giving me time to clean up my place and set up my PC for gaming. I sent him my address after getting everything ready, and he texted back saying he was on his way. Usually I wouldn't invite someone I hadn't met in person to my place, but Ethan seemed safe enough, and he was definitely attractive. So I felt okay about it. When he arrived, I peeked through the door viewer and saw Ethan holding a bottle of red wine, smiling warmly. We hadn't talked about drinking wine, but I do love a good red, and he had brought my favorite brand. I opened the door, complimented his choice, and jokingly asked if he was a mind reader. He laughed and replied, "What can I say? You seem like a red wine kind of person." I inquired about his plan for getting home if he drank too much, to which he replied that he had taken an Uber. We spent some time sipping wine on my back patio, sharing stories about our lives, work, and our experiences with coming out. Later, we moved inside to play some games on my PC, which was a lot of fun. Eventually, Ethan showed me some of his programming work on his laptop. After a while, I needed to use the bathroom, so I excused myself. Just as I was about to close the door, I heard footsteps approaching quickly. Before I knew it, Ethan was turning the doorknob. Since I hadn't locked the door, he walked right in without knocking, pressed up against me from behind, and started to hold me tightly by the shoulders. I pushed him away and half-jokingly said, "Hey, that's too much." He just smiled and responded, Sorry, just wanted to see how you'd react. I left the bathroom and went to the kitchen, with him following close behind. I offered him more wine or some water. Before I could reach for the water bottle in the fridge, he pressed himself against me again and touched me inappropriately, all while giving me a very unsettling smile. This time, I was completely shocked. I pushed him away hard and shouted at him. I told him that we had just met, and it wasn't right to move so fast into something so personal. He called me a waste of time and said I was ruining the reputation of gay men, and then accused me of being homophobic. I countered that if I were homophobic, I wouldn't be spending time with him and discussing our lives as we had been. I admitted I found him attractive, but insisted he was crossing serious lines. He just laughed and claimed, "In the LGBTQ community, there are no boundaries." Shortly after, he announced he had to leave. Relieved, I thought, thank God. I walked him to the door and he left without another word. After he left, I decided to take a shower to calm down. About 5 minutes into my shower, I started hearing a strange clinking noise from the door. I peeked through the shower door and saw to my horror that Ethan was using a spoon to peer under the door, watching me. I could only see this because there was a gap at the bottom of the door. Not sure what to do, I acted as if I hadn't noticed and quietly turned off the shower. I wrapped a towel around myself and was about to confront him when I heard the sound of a camera shutter from his phone. I yanked the bathroom door open, but he dashed down the hallway and out the front door. I watched him jump into a white Honda Civic, not the Uber he claimed to have taken, and drive off. I was left bewildered, not knowing why he took that photo or what he planned to do with it. I immediately blocked him on Tinder and was left feeling very uneasy, worried he might come back. So that's my chilling encounter with the Tinder guy who violated my personal space right in my own home. I never really understood how terrifying it is to be followed by someone who won't leave you alone. At the time, I was 18 years old, and even though it happened 4 years ago, the memory is still clear in my mind. I was a freshman in college, and my girlfriend had just ended our relationship. I was heartbroken. I texted her multiple times, but she never replied. I also tried calling her, but I kept getting her voicemail. All I wanted was to fix things with her, but she wouldn't answer my calls or texts. My older brother, who was 27, told me it was time to move on. He suggested trying online dating. I wasn't keen on online dating because I had heard many stories about people pretending to be someone else. But after thinking about it for a while, I decided to give it a try. I downloaded Tinder and set up my profile. After finishing, I waited for someone to message me. I waited a whole day, and no one did. I was about to log out when suddenly, someone sent me a message. It read, "Hey, what's up?" I replied, "Not much. How about you?" While waiting for her next message, I checked out her profile. For privacy, let's call her Lily. Lily had blonde hair and striking blue eyes, and she lived nearby. My first thought was, wow, this gorgeous girl just messaged me. Just as I was thinking that, I got another message from her. "You look really handsome. Want to meet up sometime?" I quickly replied, "I'd love to." She messaged back right away asking, "When do you want to meet?" I asked when she was free, and she said the next day. We decided to meet then and started discussing where. "How about the coffee shop nearby tomorrow morning?" she suggested. I agreed, saying that sounded great and that I'd see her there. Our chat ended there. I went to bed feeling ecstatic. The next morning, I got ready and drove to the coffee shop. I texted her that I had arrived, and she texted back, "I'm just a minute away." I sent a simple, "Okay," got a table, and waited. She arrived soon after, and we hit it off right away. It turned out we had a lot in common. We both enjoyed talking about video games and going on road trips. It felt like we had known each other for a long time. As we ended our date, we said goodbye. When I got home, she had already sent me a message saying she missed me. Our next date was set for 3 days later. I prepared myself and drove to where we were supposed to meet. But something was off about her that day. She seemed different. Not mean, just odd and somewhat shy. I asked if something was wrong, and she just said no. After the date, we said goodbye again. But as soon as I got home, she called, sounding urgent, telling me she wanted to give me a gift next time we met. It was strange, but I agreed. I ended the call, but she called back immediately, asking, "Why did you hang up on me?" I explained I thought our conversation was over. She then asked me to stay on the phone with her all night. I apologized, explaining I couldn't because I had classes the next day. She ignored me and kept talking, asking personal questions. I tried to end the call, saying it was late and I needed to sleep, but she insisted I stay up and talk. I was very tired and eventually fell asleep during our call. In the morning, I woke up to about 100 messages from her. One message shocked me the most. She threatened to break into my house and hurt me if I didn't reply. I was stunned and frightened. That's when I knew I needed to end things with her. Despite my decision, she didn't back down. She moved to an apartment closer to mine and even transferred to my college. She started following me around, always a few steps behind, never attending her own classes, just watching me from a distance with a chilling stare. I'm not the type to intimidate anyone, and I doubted she'd listen if I asked her to stop. Her obsession grew worse. She would press her face against my door, and through the peephole, I could see her eye peering in as if trying to see inside. Once, she even attempted to break in. I called the police multiple times, but they said they couldn't act without solid evidence. I decided to file for a restraining order, but even that didn't stop her. She continued to follow me and even tried to physically attack me once. Exhausted and scared, I called the police again, this time demanding they arrest her. I explained to the police that she was ignoring the restraining order. While I was on the call, my phone rang from a different number. I asked the police to wait and answered it. It was Lily, speaking in a chilling voice, saying terrifying things. "If I can't have you, nobody can," I shouted back at her, warning her that she would be arrested if she didn't stop following me. But soon after that call, she appeared at my apartment door, holding a large knife. I know it might seem strange since I'm a man, but I started to panic and scream when I saw her. Her hair was wild, her eyes red and angry, and her breath visible in the air as if it were freezing. She looked like she hadn't bathed in days. She screamed that haunting phrase again, "If I can't have you, nobody can," and charged at me with the knife. I dodged, but she still managed to cut my cheek. I ran into another room, locked the door, and called the police, telling them she was attacking me. Lily was outside the door, yelling wildly and stabbing the door with her knife. But thankfully, within 10 minutes, the police arrived. They tackled her and took her into custody. As I came out of the room, I saw only rage in her eyes. As they led her away, she screamed a threat at me. "I just want you to know when I get out, I'm going to kill you." There was a trial, and Lily was imprisoned for assault and attempted murder. You can imagine, after that nightmare, I gave up on dating apps for good. Recently, I called the police to check on Lily's status, and they told me she was not doing well. She was still fixated on me, keeping a journal with plans to kidnap and kill me. After that conversation, I moved to another state, far away from where Lily could find me. I really hope she doesn't harm anyone else when she gets out. So to Lily, my obsessive ex-girlfriend, I hope I never see you again. Last night, something terrifying happened to me, and I need to share it while every detail is still clear in my mind. To begin, I should mention that I'm a 20-year-old woman. I'm a bit shorter than average and built more solidly, which might not make me seem scary, but trust me, I can handle myself if I need to. Let's backtrack a bit before diving into what happened. A few months ago, I finally escaped a very harmful relationship that lasted nearly 2 years. This relationship left me both mentally and physically drained, so much so that it even affected my grades, forcing me to retake a class at my university to stay eligible for the nursing program. After cutting ties with that person, I felt incredibly lonely. People don't often discuss how difficult it is to transition from talking to someone daily to not speaking at all, especially when they've hurt you deeply. While I enjoyed my newfound single life and the personal space it brought, I also deeply missed having someone close, someone to share my days with. Since my schedule was packed with school and work, meeting new people was challenging, so I turned to dating apps. Unlike many, I chose Facebook's dating service because it seemed less focused on casual flings compared to others like Tinder or Bumble. I set up my profile to indicate that I was interested in chatting or a long-term relationship, posted a couple of decent photos of myself, and called it a night. The next day, I checked my profile and, as expected, there were a few likes from spam bots, people far outside my state, and guys just looking for a quick hookup. But then I matched with someone. Let's call him Barry. Barry was good-looking and seemed to be around my age. Plus, he had some adorable dogs and shared some interests with me. His profile also stated he was looking for something serious. One key detail, he claimed he was 23. It was Barry who messaged me first. I remember feeling a small thrill because it was rare for guys to initiate conversation. Our chat soon covered everything from our jobs to hobbies and past relationships. However, a red flag appeared when he mentioned that his ex was crazy. I'm well aware that when someone labels their ex as crazy, it often means there were significant problems in that relationship. Despite this, we kept talking, and eventually exchanged phone numbers and Snapchat usernames. Over the next few days, Barry kept suggesting we talk on the phone. I'm not much for phone calls. My last relationship left a bad taste as my ex often hung up on me during arguments. So, I dodged his requests, partly because I was busy, and partly because I wasn't ready to engage that deeply. I decided to spend a day visiting my parents, and during a stroll through a clothing store, my phone rang from a number I didn't recognize. I answered hesitantly. Hello? Hey, I figured you wouldn't call, so I decided to call you. I paused, slightly annoyed, and responded, I'm sorry, who is this? I knew it was Barry, but I pretended not to recognize his voice to convey my irritation and to hint that I was busy. Yes, it's Barry. I thought we could chat for a bit. I was getting quite irritated because he kept asking odd questions like if I had relatives near where he lived or if I often visited his area. Usually I wouldn't mind such questions, but my parents were looking at me with annoyance and confusion because I was talking to someone they didn't know instead of enjoying the day with them. After about an hour, yes, a whole hour, I managed to end the call by agreeing to meet him for lunch the next day. Not the best idea, I know, but he was very persistent. We decided to meet at a restaurant roughly 45 minutes from my place. Despite everything, I felt a bit excited about the date. It had been a long time since I'd been on one, and it felt nice to be wanted. I dressed up, styled my hair, and put on some makeup. Before leaving, I sent him a message saying I was on my way. His reply was a bit strange. Hey, I'm heading to the restaurant now. See you there. Okay, great. I have to stop somewhere first, but I'll be there, he added. I half expected him to surprise me with flowers or something sweet like that, which made me even more eager. However, when I arrived at the restaurant, I was surprised not to see his car anywhere. I walked around the parking lot because he had described his car to me in detail, but it was nowhere to be seen. As I approached the entrance, I spotted him. He wasn't lying about his identity, but he looked different from his pictures. About 20 pounds heavier and much taller than me, almost by 1.5 feet. And he was smoking a cigarette, something he never mentioned before. I decided to overlook these details and greeted him. We entered the restaurant only to find out there was a 30-minute wait for a table, so we stepped outside. He lit another cigarette as we began to chat. He was charming, kept the conversation flowing smoothly, and seemed to ask all the right questions. Suddenly, he paused and said, There are a few things I wanted to ask, but I don't want to make it awkward. Curious, I replied, Oh? Then staring directly at me after we had just discussed harmless topics like our favorite colors and family backgrounds, he asked, So, are you a virgin? I felt a chill run through me. Really? We had just met, and he was asking such a personal question. I answered sternly, No. His question had upset me, but I tried to push aside my irritation. As soon as our table was ready, we headed over to sit down. Trying to ease the strange tension, I asked him what he had been up to before our date. His answer made me freeze. Oh yeah, I stopped by a local gun shop and got a shotgun. Confused, I responded. I'm sorry, you bought a shotgun today? He corrected me casually. Well, I didn't buy it outright. I put it on layaway. From then on, the conversation took an unsettling turn. Every topic we touched eventually circled back to guns. Though I have nothing against guns, his timing for acquiring one right before our date and his ongoing obsession with them seemed odd and unnerving. After dinner, we decided to stroll around a nearby mall. Foolishly, I chose not to drive separately, thinking it would save gas as the mall was just down the road. We headed towards his car, which he had parked quite far from the restaurant. This was yet another odd thing that caught my attention. The evening was about to become even more frightening. As we walked, I noticed a handgun tucked into his pants without a holster, barely concealed. Trying to keep my voice steady, I inquired, "Oh, so you carry?" He answered with a smug look, showing off his concealed carry card. Curious and cautious, I asked him about his age again. He said he was 20, contradicting the 23 years listed on his profile. I rationalized this discrepancy, thinking maybe his Facebook info was outdated. When we reached his car, a family was unloading groceries next to us. Barry, not thinking twice, pulled out his handgun and started waving it around, trying to show it to me. I nervously suggested he put it away, especially since there were children close by. He laughed, a bit reluctantly, and finally stored the gun. At the mall, Barry stopped to grab his jacket from the trunk. He called me over, saying he had something to show me. To my shock, when I looked inside, I saw 2 large shotguns just lying openly in the trunk. My heart raced as I stared at him, bewildered and scared, asking, "What's going on? Why do you have these?" He just smiled, seemingly pleased with himself, and shrugged. Clearly this guy had some serious issues. Despite the bizarre and frightening showcase, he then asked if he could hold my hand. I deflected by suggesting we walk a bit more. Things seemed to calm down a bit as we entered a department store where he wanted to buy shoes. After choosing a pair, he proceeded to check out, agreeing to sign up for a store credit card which required personal information. When the cashier asked for his name, he revealed that Barry was actually his middle name. He disliked his first name and never used it. I was stunned, realizing all these little lies and half-truths were adding up, making me feel increasingly uneasy and betrayed. I'd been honest with him about my details, and his deception was unsettling. After leaving the store, we passed a candy shop. I've always loved sweets, and even though I'm grown up, I still feel like a kid when I see candy. As we passed the candy shop, I got excited about going in. But then he looked me up and down and said, "Sometimes it's better not to give in to temptation." I couldn't believe he said that, especially since he wasn't exactly slim himself. I rolled my eyes at him and walked away. For the rest of the evening, he seemed uninterested in anything I wanted to do. It was all about his choices. After wandering around for 2 hours, he suggested we watch a movie. There was a nice movie theater nearby, and there was a film I actually wanted to see, so I agreed. Inside the theater, I told him I needed to use the bathroom. When I returned, I found out he had bought tickets for a completely different movie than we'd discussed. I was upset, but just let it go. I told him I was going to buy snacks, ignoring his remark that we should wait longer. I bought myself a drink and some candy. I felt I deserved it after enduring the night with him. The movie turned out to be pretty good, and he didn't try anything funny, probably because he could tell I was not in the best mood. When the movie ended, he didn't say anything. Not about the movie or anything else. I was disgusted by how the evening had turned out. I checked my phone and saw 5 missed calls from my mom and several texts from a good friend who was worried because I'd told her the date wasn't going well. I reassured them I was okay, and we left the theater. He drove me back to my car at the restaurant. As we pulled up next to my car, he seemed to expect a kiss, but I was too eager to just get in my car and head home. Remember how his profile mentioned he was looking for a long-term relationship? Well, this is what he said next. "So, I'm just going to be upfront with you. I'm not really looking for anything serious right now." Annoyed, I faked a smile and replied, "You know what? Me neither. I don't have time for a relationship." This wasn't a complete lie since I do work and study full-time. I wished him a good night, thanked him for the dinner and the movie, got into my car and drove off. I immediately called my best friend to tell her everything. Reflecting on the night, I realized it could have been genuinely dangerous. From now on, I won't let any guy pressure me into a date unless I've been talking to him for weeks and feel completely safe. This experience hasn't improved my view of dating. It's not that I think all guys are just looking for a hookup, but maybe the good ones are already taken or busy improving themselves. I haven't given up on finding love, but I'm certainly going to focus on myself and make sure I never end up in such a risky situation again. This story might not be the most terrifying you'll hear, but it sure gave me the creeps. Here's a bit about me. I'm a 20-year-old woman. A while ago, I connected with this man on Tinder. His name was Jake, and he seemed all right, so I decided to add him on Snapchat. We chatted for a bit, but the conversation faded pretty fast. I never told him exactly where I lived, just mentioned a nearby city that's quite big, thinking he wouldn't be able to figure out my location from that small detail. But a few weeks back, Jake started messaging me again, and we exchanged some casual messages. Everything was fine until New Year's Eve came around. The day before, he texted me to say he would be near my area and wanted to know if I'd like to grab lunch. I said maybe, and that I'd let him know later. That night, I was busy getting ready for a New Year's Eve gathering with a few friends and didn't really check my phone. It was around 7:30 p.m. when I finally checked my Snapchat and saw that not only had Jake messaged me, he had also tried to call. His message read, "Hey, so I'm in your city." I quickly replied, apologizing for seeing his message so late. That's when the situation took a stranger turn. The messages kept coming, and each one felt more unsettling than the last. It felt as though he was closer than just being in the same city. The tone of his texts changed. They were persistent, almost like he was desperate to meet up, not just casually suggesting it as before. What really shook me was his message right before midnight saying, "I hope I can see you before the year ends." The thought that he might actually try to find me at the party, or worse, figure out where I live, sent shivers down my spine. My friends noticed I was distracted and uneasy, but the night was busy and loud, so I tried to push away the uneasy feeling creeping up my spine. I didn't reply to his last message, choosing instead to lose myself in the noise and laughter of the party, hoping the new year would wash away the strange dread Jake's messages had brought. Within minutes of my reply, Jake opened my message and reacted in a way that really scared me. He texted something like, "Just so you know, I'm not interested in someone who can't even answer the phone when I drove 6 hours just to see her." I stared at the message, bewildered, and for a moment, I thought he might be joking. I texted back, asking him what he was talking about, and clarified that he hadn't driven 6 hours just for me. Jake insisted we had plans, asking why else he would have come here. I was so confused because we never made any solid plans. He had mentioned being in the area, which I assumed was for work or to visit someone else. It's pretty normal for people to come here for those reasons. I tried to explain this to him, making it clear we had no definite plans, and that I never asked him to make such a long drive for me. He replied that he had waited around for 2 hours for me and even bought me flowers. I was really puzzled because we hadn't set a time or place to meet, and we definitely hadn't confirmed any plans. You don't just hint at being nearby and expect that to count as making plans. That's not how it works. I apologized to keep the peace, but I repeated that we had never officially planned anything. He then demanded that to make it up to him, I should drive to see him the next day. No way was I going to do that. Then I remembered my location was shared on Snapchat, making it easy for him to find my house. Immediately, I turned off my location setting, but I kept him on Snapchat just in case he tried something like showing up at my place. Thankfully, I haven't heard from him since that night. But the whole experience left me feeling uneasy, constantly looking over my shoulder, wondering if ignoring his last demand might have been a mistake. As I lay in bed, the sounds of the night seemed louder, and every little noise made me jump, half expecting to see Jake standing outside my window. A couple of years back, I signed up on this dating website where I matched with a cop. He had a police dog that looked adorable, and I thought it might be fun to meet the dog. However, my interest faded quickly after hearing him moan about his recent split. I can't remember everything he said, but it was clear he was the troublesome one in that split. What really turned me off was how he seemed too interested in my body, tattoos, and my bright hair. I told him straight that I wasn't interested and that he gave me a bad feeling. He pleaded for another chance, but I said no and blocked his number. A few nights later, there was a loud knock at my door around midnight. It scared me so much that I felt my heart sink. Peering through the peephole, I saw a stranger with a food bag. He claimed to be from Uber Eats. I told him through the door that I hadn't ordered anything, but he insisted it was for me and even knew my name. I asked who sent it, and he mentioned a name I didn't recognize. I insisted I didn't want the food and told him to just toss it in the trash since I wasn't sure he really was a delivery guy. Later, as I scrolled through my dating app matches, I realized it was the cop's name. Checking my blog messages, I found a bunch from him. His last message read, "I really hope you liked your dinner." At that point, I thought it might be safer to unblock him so I could keep track of what he was saying, just in case I needed to protect myself or consider buying some strong pepper spray. A few weeks after, while at work, my phone rang from an unknown number. I picked it up, thinking it might be a new client. The voice from the other end of the phone then says, "Hello, Rachel. I'm at a Starbucks across the street. What would you like to drink?" Who is this? I don't remember scheduling you," I replied, thinking maybe it was a regular client I'd forgotten about. He tells me his name, and again my heart sinks. How on earth did he find out where I work? I questioned how he knew my home and workplace, and he admitted he used my dating profile pictures to find my social media and Yelp page for my salon, then figured out my address from there. I warned him that I was going to report him to his police station for stalking, and that if he ever approached me, I would take it as a threat and defend myself. Despite my clear refusal, he still pleaded for another chance. I hung up, called his station to report him, but they barely took me seriously. They even refused to let me email them the creepy messages he sent. The woman on the line simply said, "Oh, I'm sorry. He's really struggling right now," as if he were the one being harassed. He mostly left me alone afterward, but it left me terrified of living alone for the first time ever. I run a somewhat popular meme page on Instagram with about 8,000 followers. Digging through it, I found roughly 5 different accounts of his. I blocked all of them and tried to move on. Now, all this happened a few years ago, but these memories rushed back when I saw a familiar profile picture commenting on one of my posts. It looks like I missed one of his accounts when I was blocking. I had uploaded a picture of me with 2 large tunas I caught on a trip. His comment was, "God, I really wish I was one of those fish. I'd love to know what it's like to be held by you." Seriously, what a creep. What a... The story started in February of last year when my close friend Anna decided to try and find a special someone, so she downloaded Tinder and started looking. She stumbled upon a profile of a guy around his mid-20s with pale skin and curly hair. She liked his profile right away. Just about 20 minutes later, Anna received a notification from Tinder. It was from the same guy she had liked. They began chatting and got along well, but she didn't think much of it afterward. Months passed, and the guy started acting strange. He sent her one message after another, non-stop, until she got annoyed and blocked him. Jump to August, and one boring day, Anna and I decided to drive to a mall about 45 minutes from our town. Our other friend, Claire, came along in her car to keep us company. We left the mall around 6:30 p.m. after grabbing some food and started heading home. On our way back, something felt off. Suddenly, Anna got a friend request on Snapchat from the same guy she had blocked months ago. Annoyed, she messaged him to stop bothering her and blocked him again. We tried to forget about it and enjoy the rest of our day, but the trouble wasn't over. That night, we decided to stay over at our friend's place so Anna wouldn't be alone. In the middle of the night, I woke up to go to the bathroom. That's when I saw a dark, shadowy figure outside the bedroom window. I screamed, and Anna's dad rushed in to see what was wrong. I told him what I saw, and he went outside to check. Sure enough, the shadow was still there, and the man was wearing a mask. Anna's dad tackled the masked man, and yes, it was the same guy Anna had blocked on Snapchat. We called the police immediately, and they arrived in less than 10 minutes to arrest him. I know this might not sound too scary from the outside, but for us, it was the most terrifying thing we've ever gone through, and I hope it's the last.